Hello, darlings. It's me. I bet you've been wondering where I am, what I've been doing, and everything that I've been up to. The meals that I've been eating, the books that I've been reading, the stories I've been telling, the lies, the deceit, the betrayals, the romance. It's been lovely. And I hope you've been having a lovely month, even if it has been without me. My darlings, it's so good to see you, even though I can't see you. But I'm going to use the powers of my considerable imagination and imagine that you're curled up with me. Now, you may notice that I am not in my usual place, that I'm not using a good microphone or even a good camera. That is because, darlings, this GlamourHobo is on the road. I'm even borrowing this bathrobe, this smoking jacket. My fine hosts down here near Charleston, South Carolina, have been keeping me in the beauteous fairyland that is their home. And so I thank them from the bottom of the cockles of my heart for that generosity and welcome. It does feel like I've been a bit Rip Van Winkled, and I'm 100% consenting to it. My dears, my darlings, my loved ones, please tell me how all of your holidays went. Your solstice, your Kwanzaa, your Hanukkah, your Christmas, your Belatmas, no, what is it called? Festivus. Hello, Sally. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know I didn't do any kind of a shout out, a reminder even. But you know where I am and you know where to find me. I am tucked into this very large, very comfortable sofa situation with these very fuzzy, nice pillows. I'm enjoying it muchly. It's very tactile, very sensational. And we have a weird book that I found on the shelves that my hosts have never read and they found for $1, which means we're obviously reading it. And when I was reading the back of it, it has my name on it. So that's where we are. No Dune this week. And I didn't bring my Lenormand deck because I didn't think I would be here. But I did bring my tarot. So, as usual, my loves, we are going to build a story together first. Now, darlings, I know that it's been a tense time, very stressful, and sometimes without a break. It's important to know what your boundaries are. It's important to know what you need in those moments when you have to say, I have to have a lie down. I cannot come. I'm not bringing anything with me. I will not be bringing a pie. You will not be getting a present. I don't expect presents. So I hope that you've all been able to not just white-knuckle death grip your time through the holiday season, but to really enjoy it and find yourself Rip Van Winkled by the fairies in some beautiful way. I have been chomping at the bit to do a bunch of traveling and a bunch of festivals, and the festivals were cancelled at the last possible minute. It keeps happening. So that was frustrating. But I found myself in South Carolina because I was coming to visit a friend on my way to a festival, and I just thought, why waste the opportunity? So I have a story to tell you. I'll make it brief, though. I used to own a gun, but now that gun is going to be dissolved into ink. The process by which iron is turned into ink, or iron oxide for red, is really fascinating, and I found an alchemist here. And he is taking a weapon of destruction, beautiful as it may have been, and he's turning it into something that can only make. Making the pen, quite literally, mightier than the sword. I'm so pleased that I found him. His name is Thomas Little. He does beautiful, thoughtful, magical ink work and sells them. And you can find him on Instagram. It's a rural pen, as in a rural place with ink. Highly recommend it. And his art is fabulous. So on my adventure down to South Carolina, I first stopped for our trade. And south of the border, it's in the South Carolina, North Carolina border, there is it's a truck stop, but it's also a liquor store, but it's also putt-putt golf, but it's also a hotel with a geodesic glass dome above its pool called the Pleasure Dome. It was amazing. I spent essentially 24 hours at like a super kitschy place, but also is like, it's a racist place because it's all using what was considered by white people completely okay in 1949 to co-opt Mexican identity and make it into something that could sell. And so it is a deeply problematic and challenging place. It also is kind of a perfect microcosm of America and what's been happening to it and how it kind of grows organically. And it's full of neon and fiberglass sculptures of jackalopes that are big enough to ride like a horse. Fireworks and strippers and hot dogs and pools and air hockey. It's just a weird place. It is a strange, strange place. So I went there first. I made my exchange, and now I am here. So I'm so glad for you, Sally, that you were able to see some friends. It has a good ice cream place. I did not know that. It was a little too chilly for that. So yeah, it was strange. It was a very strange place. But I think it's time. I think it's time for me to take a drink. Do a land acknowledgement. I am currently broadcasting from what was originally Cusco land here in South Carolina, very near the ocean. And it is my pleasure to be back with you. I might not be in a bed, but we can still snuggle on this very large couch. All right, darlings, it's time. But because we're using the tarot today instead of the Lenormands, I'm going to need you to shout me some numbers. I need 3 numbers. And should we do it that way? No, we're not going to do it that way. I'm just going to shuffle and you're going to tell me to stop. Are you ready? Drop it in the comments. I'm shuffling, I'm shuffling, I'm shuffling, I'm shuffling, I'm shuffling, I'm shuffling, I'm shuffling. Okay. Boop. Ooh, the Strength card. Feeling her a lot. And I'm going to pick the 2 next to it as well. Woo! Woof! Woof, 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 woof. Okay. So we have Strength, which is a major arcana. Look at that glorious gold background. And that is a woman in a gown, a white gown with roses in her hair, and the infinity symbol above her with her hand literally in the jaws of a lion. This card is about accepting and directing your inner shadow and also about vulnerability as strength. That brute force is not the only kind of strength. And we have the Page of Discs, which is coming up a lot lately. Look at this. Look at this. This is sometimes known as the Princess of Discs or Pentacles. About people who are ready to do the work, and they'll show up every day on time, and they will even remember your coffee, but they need guidance. They need some help. They're paladins. They're, well, maybe that's not the right way of saying it. Padawans, not paladins. And then the Five of Cups, which is going to be great for story making. The Five of Cups is about there is forgiveness for you if you forgive yourself. You may have dropped 3 of those cups, but there are still 2 waiting for you to notice them. This is the misery card. This is the card of people who want to wallow. Wallow. Let's build a story. Ooh, to my knee. Once upon a time, it was last Tuesday, Gerald was walking through a grassy field, and he was noticing all of the white flowers that were in it, and wondering about how his hay fever hadn't actually already strangled him, because as much as he loved where he lived, in this beautiful environment, in a place just brimming with natural fecundity, he was sickly. He was constantly having hay fever. He was constantly stubbing his toe and falling over cliffs. He was so ready to not be a gawky kid anymore, the baby giraffe anymore. And he knew that he was going to have to start an apprenticeship and learn from somebody in order to be better. Now, who should this person be but the Witch of Strength? They called her that because she once flipped over a city bus. It was actually quite amazing. She didn't even break a nail. It was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, season 1. Now, the Witch of Strength is the name given to a woman who lives with the hyenas and the lions. It's a title, it's a crown, it's a sovereignty, it's a responsibility. Because she has to live so closely and sleep with and eat with and shit with the earth and its creatures around her in order to maintain this beautiful but kind of tenuous order between the wilds and the civilization. She was the bridge. And the bridge had to be strong, resilient, crafty. The apprenticeship was due to start in just a few days, but Gerald, our Page of Discs, was summoned into his family's home and told the news there was a shadow spilling over their lives, that they had lost their eldest, that child who had all of the weight of the world on top of them, that they were supposed to be the savior, the best marriage, the honor of the family, gone. And why? He drank himself to death. the pressure, the incredible compression that was happening to his heart and his mind by the people around him to be the best, most perfect. Couldn't handle it. He was those 3 spilled cups, and he was ready to find anything else within reaching distance and swallow it up too. And so he was swallowed. The news came as a shock to people who hadn't been paying attention. Gerald knew. And he also knew that going to study and be with this chironic character, this teacher of wisdom, it didn't matter if he was good at it. He had to go. He had to try. And when he arrived, tear-streaked, heartbroken, nervous, she looked at him and said, so have you learned our first lesson, have you? Heartbreak, weeping, keening. Those are sharp tools, and you can build bridges with them. That's it for our story today, for our built story, our tarot story. I don't know how I feel about the tarot deck versus the Lenormand, if I'm honest. I have to tell you that I've spritzed myself with rose water, so I smell amazing. Okay, friends, it's time. Night of the Jabberwock by Frederick Brown. I found this on the shelves of my friend's house. And the back says this was first published in 1950. It's one of the most brilliant and bizarre murder mysteries ever, with a denouement so ingenious it will leave you gasping. So I guess this isn't science fiction, but it's kind of based on it has something to do with the Jabberwock and Lewis Carroll. So I guess it's more of a noir. But let's get into it. All right. Mysterious classic. It's a reprint from 1984. There are no secret messages in it. Not today. All right, darlings. Are you prepared? Yeah, I've never heard of this, Sally. So if you're just dropping in and saying hello, just drop a hello in the chat, darlings, so I can see you and imagine you. If you haven't been here before, my name is Carmel. I am your GlamourHobo bedtime tale teller, and this is the Nat 21 Adventures Twitch channel, YouTube channel, and sometimes it's gaming, and sometimes it's tarot, and sometimes it's storytelling, and all of the time we like to charm you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Chapter 1. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the moth rabs outgrabe. In my dream, I was standing in the middle of Oak Street, and it was a dark night. The street lights were off, only pale moonlight glinted on the huge sword that I swung in circles about my head as the Jabberwock crept closer. It bellied along the pavement, flexing its wings and tensing its muscles for the final rush. Its claws clicked against the stones like the clicking of mats down the channels of a linotype. Then, astonishingly, it spoke. "Doc," it said. "Wake up, Doc." A hand, not the hand of a Jabberwock, was shaking my shoulder. And it was early dusk instead of black night, and I was sitting in the swivel chair at my battered desk, looking over my shoulder at Pete. Pete was grinning at me. "We're in, Doc," he said. "You'll have to cut 2 lines on this last take, and we're in. Early for once." He put a galley proof down in front of me, only 1 stick of type long. I picked up a blue pencil and knocked off 2 lines, and they happened to even be in a sentence, so Pete wouldn't have to reset anything. Ooh, this is like old-timey print journalism chat. He went over to the linotype and shut it off, and it was suddenly very quiet in the place, so quiet that I could hear the drip of the faucet way in the far corner. I stood up and stretched, feeling good, although a little groggy from having dozed off while Pete was setting the final take. For once, for one Thursday, the Carmel City Clarion was ready for the press early. Of course, there wasn't any real news in it, but then there never was. And only 6:30 and not yet dark outside. We were through hours earlier than usual. There is an enormous typo in here. I think it's supposed to be 3. I decided that called for a drink, here and now. The bottle in my desk turned out to have enough whiskey in it for 1 healthy drink or 2 short ones. I asked Pete if he wanted a snort, and he said no, and not yet, and he'd wait till he got over to Smiley's, so I treated myself to a healthy drink, as I'd hoped I'd be able to do. And it had been fairly safe to ask Pete. He seldom took 1 more before he was through with the day, and although my part of the job was done, Pete still had almost an hour's work ahead of him on the mechanical end. The drink made a warm spot under my belly as I walked over to the window by the linotype and stood staring out into the quiet dusk. The lights of Oak Street flashed on while I stood there. I'd been dreaming. What had I been dreaming? On the sidewalk across the street, Miles Harrison hesitated in front of Smiley's Tavern, as though the thought of a cool glass of beer tempted him. I could almost feel his mind working. No, I'm a deputy sheriff of Carmel County, and I have a job to do yet tonight, and I don't drink while I'm on duty. Beer can wait. Yes, his conscience must have won, because he walked on. I wonder now, although of course I didn't wonder then, whether if he had known that he would be dead before midnight, he wouldn't have stopped for that beer. I think he would have. I know I would have, but that doesn't prove anything because I've done it anyways. I've never had a conscience like Miles Harrison's. Behind me, at the stone, Pete was putting the final stick of type into the chase of the front page. He said, "Okay, Doc, she fits in. We're in." "Let the presses roll," I told him. Just a manner of speaking, of course. There was only 1 press, and it didn't roll, because it was a Mihiel vertical that shuttled up and down, and it wouldn't even do that until morning. The Clarion is a weekly paper that comes out on Friday. We put it to bed on Thursday evening, and Pete runs it off to the press Friday morning. And it's not much of a run. Pete asked, "You going over to Smiley's?" That was a silly question. I always go over to Smiley's on a Thursday evening, and usually, when he's finished locking up the forms, Pete joins me, at least for a while. "Sure," I told him. "I'll bring you some stone proof then." Pete always does that too, although I seldom do more than glance at it. Pete's too good a printer for me ever to catch any important errors on him, and as for minor topographicals, Carmel City doesn't mind them. I was free, and Smiley's was waiting, but for some reason I wasn't in any hurry to leave. It was pleasant after hard work on a Thursday, and don't let that short nap fool you. I had been working. To stand there and watch the quiet street in the quiet twilight to contemplate an intensive campaign of doing nothing for the rest of the evening with a few drinks to help me do it. Miles Harrison, a dozen paces past Smiley's, stopped, turned, and headed back. Good, I thought. I'll have somebody to drink with. I turned away from the window and put on my suit and coat. I have to say, should I be doing this in an old-timey, hard-boiled detective voice? I think we all know the answer is yes. Allow me to adjust. I said, "You seeing you, Pete?" And I went down the stairs and out into the warm summer evening. I'd misjudged Miles Harrison. He was coming out of Smiley's already, too soon even to have had a quick one, and he was opening a pack of cigarettes. He saw me and waved, waving in front of Smiley's door to light a cigarette while I crossed the street. "Have a drink with me, Miles," I suggested. He shook his head regretfully. "Wish I could, Doc, but I got a job to do later. You know, go with Ralph Bonney over to Nailsville and get his payroll." Sure, I knew. In a small town, everybody knows everything. Ralph Boney owned the Boney Fireworks Company just outside Carmel City. They made fireworks, mostly big pieces for fairs and municipal displays that were sold all over the county. And during the few months of each year, up to about the first week of July, they worked a day and night shift to meet the 4th of July demand. And Ralph Boney had something against Clyde Andrews, president of the Carmel City Bank, and did his banking in Neilsville. And he drove to Neilsville late every Thursday night, and they opened the bank there to give him the cash for his night shift payroll. Miles Harrison, as deputy sheriff, always went along as guard. Always seemed like a silly procedure to me, as the night-side payroll didn't amount to more than a few $1,000s, and Bonnie could have just gotten along with the cash for his day-side payroll and held it at the office. But that was his way of doing things. Okay, I have to stop here for a second, because I would like to talk about the fact that these people are talking about paying their workers immediately. Like, you leave at the end of the day, you've done your job, you've done it well, you get your pay. Why do we not do this? Why do we not do this? I don't know why we don't do this. The excuse has always been like, oh, but payroll and like all the things. I'm like, but you know what you pay us and you know what you've scheduled us for. And it came up the other day, when you borrow money from a bank or a financial institution, they charge you interest. Why don't we charge interest for the 2 weeks between the work that we do, our labor, our commodity, and when we get paid? We have loaned them our bodies for 2 weeks, and they're not paying any kind of interest. I just want to point that out. Okay. Oh, there's a lot of talking. I'll do my best. Hard-boiled Carmel City newsman. That's the other reason I chose this. It has my name in it. Sure, Miles, but that's not for hours yet, and one drink isn't gonna hurt you. He grinned. I know it wouldn't, but I'd probably take another just because the first one didn't hurt me. So I stick to the rule that I don't have even one drink till I'm off duty for the day, and if I don't stick to it, I'm sunk. But thanks for this all the same, Doc. I'll give you a rain check. He had a point, but I wish he hadn't made it. I wish he'd let me buy him that drink, or several of them, because that rain check wasn't worth the imaginary paper it was printed on to a man who was going to be murdered before midnight. But I didn't know that, and I didn't insist. I said, sure, Miles. I asked him about his kids. Fine, both of them. Drop in and see us sometime. Sure, I said, and I went into space. Big, bald, smiley Wheeler was alone. He smiled as I came in and said, hey, Doc, how's the editing business? And then he laughed as though he'd said something excruciatingly funny. Smiley hasn't the ghost of a sense of humor, and he has the mistaken idea that he disguises the fact by laughing at almost everything he says or hears. Smiley, he'd give me a pain, I told him. It's always safe to tell Smiley a truth like that, no matter how seriously you say it and mean it. He thinks you're joking. If he laughed, I'd have told him where he gave me a pain, but for once, he didn't laugh. He said, "Glad you got here early, Doc. Damn dull this evening." It's dull every evening in Carmel City. I don't know. My city's pretty cool. And most of the time I like it. But Lord, if only something would happen just once on a Thursday evening, I'd love it. Just once in my long career. I'd like to have one hot story break into the panting public. Hell, Doc, nobody looks for hot news in a country weekly. I know. That's why I'd like to fool them just once. I've been running the Clarion 23 years. One hot story. Is that too much to ask? Smiley frowned. Been a couple of burglaries and one murder a few years ago. Sure. So what? One of the factory hands out on Boney's got a drunken argument with another and hit him too hard in the fight they got into. That's not murder, that's manslaughter. And anyways, it happened on a Saturday and it was old stuff. Everybody in town knew it by next Friday when the Clarion came out. They buy your paper anyway, Doc. They don't get their names for having attended church socials. And who's got a used washing machine for sale? I mean, do you want to drink? It's about time one of us thought of that. He poured a shot for me, so I wouldn't have to drink alone. He shot one for himself. We drank them, and I asked, "Think Carl will be here tonight?" I meant Carl Trellhorn, the lawyer, who's about my closest friend in Carmel City, and one of the 3 or 4 in town who play chess and can be drawn into an intelligent discussion of something besides crops and politics. Carl often dropped by Smiley's on Thursday evenings, knowing that I always came in for at least a few drinks after putting the paper to bed. I don't think so, Smiley said. Carl was in most of the afternoon and got himself kind of a snootful to celebrate. He got through in court early and he won his case. Guess he went home to sleep it off. I said, damn, why couldn't he have waited till this evening? I've helped him. I gotta say, what I'm learning about this so far is that these men are alcoholics. They won't stop talking about getting drunk or drinking and how it won't hurt them. Oh man. This book is boring. It's so boring. I'm ejecting it. Ejected. Oh my goodness, darlings. I may call it in early. I'm still getting my sea legs back after being away in fairyland. I got Rip Van Winkled, but I would give you a bit of a surprise first. Psst. 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 Oh, I didn't see you there.
Oh.
Hello, everyone. I'd like you to meet Sean.
Hello, everyone.
This is his. Which side are you on? This is his house. This is his couch. This is also his robe that I stole.
It's true.
It's robe o'clock.
It is indeed.
Sean.
Yes.
Would you like to make an estimate of how many stories we have shared over the past 24 hours?
Literally, it has been 24 hours. I would have to say at least 57.
57 at the very least.
We spoke nonstop.
I know, for literally
hours.
hours. I have not been to bed.
We saw the sun go down, and then we saw it come back up.
Yeah, that's true. It
so
actually
make of
happened.
that what you will.
Sally says, hello, Sean.
Hello, Sally.
This is an S-H-A-U-N, Sean. Which tradition is that from? Irish, Scottish, Gaelic?
Rednecks.
Rednecks.
That's where I'm from.
The redneck Seans. S-H-A-U-N. We bonded early over the pain of our names being difficult for others. But
true.
Sally is watching from Sally, where are you? You're near New Jersey? But she's here every week. She sent me tea in the mail. It was so nice. I don't have any on me, but New Jersey. Yeah, she's in New Jersey.
Where no one knows how to pronounce anything correctly. Bless you, Sally.
So we're all up and down this East Coast. But I wanted to say a quick hello from the man with the 57 and counting. And counting stories, who is letting me colonize his sofa for my own ends. I have to say, of the 57 stories, because it's a storytelling show, of the 57 stories that we have talked about, discussed, made up, which one has been your least favorite?
Ooh, least. I don't know if I can repeat that in public.
Okay, which was your favorite?
Some of my favorite ones have been the one involving calderas and volcanoes.
That's right.
Because how cool is that?
How cool is that?
She just hangs out in volcanoes sometimes.
It's true.
Like you do.
Like you do. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Like you do. I can do that, and then you're in the frame more.
And I've spent a fair amount of time in the Atlantic Ocean, except I was underneath it.
You were underneath the Atlantic Ocean.
That's true.
Did you find any stories at the bottom of the Marianas Trench?
No, I didn't go that deep. What she's referencing, and I'm referencing, is the fact that I used to work on submarines, so we would be, Marines that
subbed.
Be subbed. So I spent 3 years like
this is Twitch. They know about subbing.
Shame.
It's really just subscriptions. It's not kinky at all.
I know, but it's fun to just make a joke.
I know. So you were Subatlantis, Subatlantica,
Subatlantian, and then I was also Subpacifican.
Subpacifican.
I crossed the equator on a submarine in both the Atlantic and the Pacific. Make that what you mean.
All right. I have not done that on a boat, but I travel up and down and side to side on planes a lot.
Side to side?
Yeah, east to west, side to side.
Well, if it was always just up and down, you wouldn't get very far, right?
Just bouncing. It's a pogo stick situation.
A hot air balloon, huh?
I
remember that story, so
I have a small seedling of an idea, dear ones, to do a show in a hot air balloon. Is it about a hot air balloon? No. Is it about people who fly hot air balloons? Probably not.
Probably.
I think there's something like sinister and precious at the same time about putting something banal in a crazy place, in a crazy circumstance, and like letting the two things work together to create the new thing.
And possibly not even acknowledging the fact that there's a hot air balloon involved. Just like this.
Yeah.
This is just how things are.
You just have to trust the audience to know that it matters, but to not hit them over the head with it. That's how I think about it. But yeah, the volcano is a favorite of mine.
Learning how to make pancakes in Hungary, that was a pretty cool story.
That was a teaching moment, for sure.
It was a teaching
I made palanchintas, and for Sean and his dear wife Rachel, I liked learning about the cabin down by the river near your place. It's beautiful, green and white, little fishing cozy cabin right on the water, and this man found the secret key that opens it.
I mean, it told me where it was. I just walked to it.
Did the key spoke to you?
I mean, in a way.
This is a 5 planets in Scorpio moment. This is an uncovering.
It is a thing. It was just like, if I was the key, where would I be? And the key was like, over here.
Over here.
I'm like, I'm sorry. I made you wait for so long.
So yeah, I like that one. I like the story of that little place. I don't like the story of the fact that the man who used to own it is no longer alive and his life's work is being dismantled by developers. But
it's like a weird subplot of the Goonies. We need to find the bag of jewels.
Oh, the rich stuff.
The rich stuff. Was it the rich stuff?
The rich stuff. Yeah, wasn't it?
It was
Internet
the
land?
something stuff. Was
It's
it
the rich stuff. I thought it was the rich stuff. It's not the shiny stuff or the good stuff. I think it's the rich stuff.
Get the rich stuff.
Get the rich stuff. Oh yeah, get the rich stuff.
And then that young man went on to be in Lord of the Rings. God bless him. Oh, Sean Astin.
Sean Astin.
It's
that's
their time
right.
up there, but it's our time down here.
Is up there Mount Doom?
No, it's when they're at the bottom of the wishing well.
No, I know.
Oh,
I
okay.
was making the
Sorry.
leap to the
You
Lord of the
went back.
Rings.
Yes, okay. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
So-
you're too quick for me.
Darling, I'm so glad that you've stopped by as I'm closing out this episode, because now people have an understanding of the kind of energetic exchange that has been happening to me for the last 24
And by
hours.
that, she means being assaulted by me verbally just for hours and hours. So I'm like, hey, here are thoughts. I think you should hear them. And she's so graciously allowed me to say them.
It's because I love stories. My darlings, my dear ones, I am going to close us out early this week. It was a pleasure to come back after so much time away. It was a pleasure to have a special guest, Sean, Shaun, because this is his house and this is his robe.
You look better in it than I do. So
I'm
there's that.
gonna say yes because I like it a lot.
It's pretty awesome.
It was robe o'clock. Like yesterday, the three of us were just like swanning around at this point, wearing a robe,
jackets and
in
robes,
smoking jackets,
doing
and out
tarot readings,
doing tarot readings, rolling around outside in the wet ground.
literally laying on the ground.
It was amazing. It was 75 degrees. It was so lovely. And the moon was out, and she was all like, "Take the vibes." And we did. But now it's cold, and it's time for interior work.
This is also true.
Which is what the moon is all about. My darlings, wave goodbye. Oh, there you are. Good night, dear ones.
Good night, peoples of the world.